Well, I think Brown clearly represents the fact that we had many courageous federal judges during that time. Had they not been independent, had they not had life tenure, we probably wouldn't have made the progress that we have made today. And the courage that was shown by the members of the Supreme Court, who were under very heavy political pressure, but demonstrated independence and courage, and I think we all benefit from that, and that's the great legacy of Brown.
I suspect that it's not so much that Brown has a direct impact on judicial independence as that if you didn't have judicial independence, you wouldn't be able to have a decision like Brown.
There are certain times where judges have to protect the ultimate purpose of the Constitution and supersede it. So it has helped in that sense expand the role of fairness and impartiality in the system.
I think any judge that serves long enough will run into situations or cases where the judge feels that that principle, constitutionally based principle, requires the judge to decide a case in a manner that is not going to be popular.
And I think that in the Brown case, we had Earl Warren, Chief Justice of the United States, whose background was totally inconsistent from an expectation standpoint with the end result of Brown. But Earl Warren, in the way that judges do in making decisions, was able to get the court to be unanimous in that decision. And I think that reflects independence of the judiciary in its essence.
And if we do anything in the 21st century, it would be not only to have a strong executive and legislative branch, but have an independent and fearless and confident and honest judicial branch. That is the heart of our civilization. If the court cannot have its independence, we cannot have a truly valid and respected legal system.
Judicial independence has been under attack for years, and it's the strength of individual judges and individual court systems that has been able to ride out the storm, I think. I think it's probably more under attack today than it was in '54. And so the challenge for an independent judiciary today is much greater, but the stakes are also much greater.
I think the importance of Brown for judicial independence is that it says to judges who are sitting today that there's a lot going on of a political nature around you, but you must be faithful to the Constitution and the laws of the United States. Because without that commitment by that court to the laws of the United States and their willingness to shut out the political rhetoric against school desegregation, we would not have had Brown.
Judicial independence is what has kept this country a free country, and judicial independence will continue to assure that those three words, liberty, justice, freedom, are not mere hollow words, but are reachable objectives.
I was in my senior high school in an English class, and on May 17th, 1954, the gong sounded for the public address system, and the principal came on and said to us, Brown versus Board of Education has been decided, and in essence, the schools will be desegregated. My English teacher stood for a second with a tear in her eye, and she said, now I can retire in peace.
Oh, I remember it was headlines in the Afro-American newspaper back in Baltimore. It was big news. I do remember that it was an issue that was talked about from time to time in school by the teachers, and so it was something that we knew about, something that we knew was important. and something that was hailed as a great thing.
I read it in the newspapers. I was in my second year of law school at the University of Washington Law School. I don't remember my constitutional law professor even discussing it. So I did not learn about the Brown decision from law school. I learned it from popular reading.
I remember my family, my mother and my father, talking about something I now recognize as Brown. I can't say I remember it as Brown, but it was quite a topic to talk about around the dinner table.
Brown is probably the classic case, other than Roe v. Wade, of the court making a strong and clear decision, even in contentious times. After Chief Justice Earl Warren was able to cobble together a unanimous decision, there were calls for his impeachment. There were death threats. There was a Southern Manifesto. The Southern congressmen said they would resist it by any means necessary. Governor Faubus in Arkansas stood in the door, wouldn't let black children come into Central High School. Governor Wallace said segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever.
And you know, the impact of it isn't so much its impact on school desegregation, where I think it hasn't been an overwhelming success, but more on how it spawned this whole movement to utilize the law for positive social change, and the way in which that sort of galvanized the civil rights movement and the women's rights movement and all of these other sort of major social change movements in the United States.
Well, it clearly was the case that ignited the modern civil rights movement, and so it opened up doors of opportunity not only in education but in the legal profession. And I do not believe that we would have as diverse a legal profession today if we didn't have the Brown decision.
My view of it was about bringing people together. And so I guess in that sense, now that you brought it up, it would be the fairness and the equal justice for people within the courts.
One of the most positive decisions ever made by the Supreme Court, and we need to celebrate its legacy, not just on the 50-year anniversary, but every year.